Hey everyone, welcome to the SilentCell podcast. Here with your host, me, V7 Silent, and
I'm Avneer Cell. You can find me on tumblr.com. Uh, I run an anime blog. Too much moe. It's bad. Don't follow it, or do, if you want. Uh, Welcome to the podcast.
yeah, welcome.
This is a kind of a spur of the moment type of thing that we thought of a few weeks ago because people were like, hey, because we were let's say we were up at from midnight to 3 in the morning, and Silent and I were talking about just whatever, and people in the voice chat with us were like, hey, you guys should start a podcast, and we're like, that sounds like a good idea at 3 in the morning.
Yeah, in 3 in the morning, it was a great idea. And then we just went through with it. So, here we are. This is our second recording.
We were going to have another host, but he's probably not going to be in every episode like Silent and I, but he'll probably pop in once in a while. Demore, he's not here with us right now, but we might get him in next episode or like the episode after.
Yeah, since we've done some introductions, I guess we should start favorite series. So, Avdir, what is your favorite and least favorite anime series?
Well, currently, I'd say my top 3 favorite anime are top number 1, Kitsugi no Chaika or Chaika the Coffin Princess. That was the one series that got me back into the anime community, and it is really the only reason why I'm here and met a lot of the people that I met today. I know objectively the second season of Chaika is not the best. It was pretty rushed, and there was a lot of stuff left out.
Objectivity is not real in art. Everything's subjective when it comes to art.
Well, I just wish they gave season 2 a little bit more justice. Like, I feel like the Chaika series was a series that could have been, if they had the budget to do so, if they could, I would say if they extended it another, season, or even just extended the one season by, 3 episodes, it would have been a lot better, because season 2 was just so rushed.
Yeah, I completely get that. Don Machi's anime adaptation was oh it was an adaptation, all right. I'm hesitant to call it that because while yes, technically it did adapt the source material, it did not do it very well. Incredibly rushed. The first season was 5 whole novels of the light novel series, which is a lot of material, and it did not cover it very well. The books are a lot better. They go a lot more in depth, and you're able to relate to the characters a lot more in the books. Not saying that series is the best thing ever or anything, but it's quite good.
I still need to read the light novel. I own the first 2 volumes of the manga, which are they pretty much follow the anime, which is not really the best thing, because it's the anime. The anime wasn't the best. But from what Silent has told me about, which is quite a bit, the the light novel is apparently pretty good, and I've been wanting to pick it up. But I was actually in my bookstore today, and they only had volumes 6 through 8. They didn't have any of the first ones. I was actually thinking about picking one of them up, but they didn't have one.
Yeah, it's quite a popular series actually. I was looking on Amazon and or maybe it was Barnes and Nobles, one of the two, and it was #1 bestsellers in teen fiction, I believe it was.
Wasn't it only passed by Konosuba?
Uh, it actually surpassed Konosuba. It beat ReZero, Konosuba, and Sword Art Online. It beat all of those for like a month. It was crazy. Yeah, the light novels are incredibly popular.
From what you've told me, it sounds like the light novel follows a lot more story than really anything that I've seen from it. Even with the new series, I guess, that was airing or is still airing. I don't know if it's still airing.
Yeah, I believe it is still airing. I have the first volume of that side story, but I haven't finished it. I'm like a little bit over halfway through it. It's pretty good. It's pretty good. It's interesting. It starts off a little bit before the first volume of Don Machi starts. So it's an interesting series to read.
Does it start when Eyes is going out after killing the Minotaur or whatever?
No, it starts before that. It starts in the Loki Familia's excursion into the dungeon down at the 55th floor, I think is where they were. They fight this really powerful monster that corrodes their weapons and stuff, and it was really hard for them to beat. and so they obviously beat it. And they're coming up, and then they're fighting Minotaurs, and they're so strong the Minotaurs are running in fear, and that's why the Minotaurs were getting up into the higher floors. And Iz chases one of the Minotaurs, and that's where she meets Belle.
Hmm.
And so that was pretty interesting to see that side of the story.
All right. Well, so yeah, Chaika is my first favorite series. My second favorite series, which a lot of people will agree with me on, maybe even say is their first favorite series, the Madoka series. I could go on talking about it for like hours, and Silent himself hasn't seen it, but
I need to watch more Magical Girl anime to actually watch Madoka.
it's really good, as a lot of people who have seen it can vouch for. I'll probably be talking about it sometime in a later episode, so I won't go too depth in it right now.
I need to watch more Magical Girl anime to watch Madoka because I feel I'll have a much greater appreciation for it. That's also a series I want to watch with my sister after watching Magical Girl anime with her.
The Madoka anime actually isn't like, I know that you're a little averse to gore and stuff, but it's like it's not explicitly on screen. It's just very hinted at.
Yeah, you know it's there, but it's not on screen. I like that type of stuff. If I can't see it, it's like it's not really there.
And then my third favorite series is Demi-chan. I don't remember the rest. Interviews with Monster Girls.
I just finished that anime actually quite recently.
You only just finished the anime? What'd you think of it?
I felt like episodes 11 and 12 should have been switched. Because episode 11 definitely felt like, oh, this is the end. Oh, wait, there's still another episode. Okay.
Yeah, I feel you. Episode 12 was kind of just the tack on for fan service, but
Darn you, A1 Pictures.
eh, you know, I like the way that that Demi-chan handled its sort of concept and subject matter.
Yeah, no, it's definitely a good series. It's not amazing. I mean, I think it's quite good, but it's definitely not the most amazing thing I've ever seen.
I just liked it because I do sort of like humanoid sort of like focus characters where like they're human but they're also part whatever, and explaining how that would actually relate in the real world as opposed to like something like Monster Musume, which is nothing but fan service, and it's like, hey, look at these boobs, hey, look at these boobs, hey, look at these boobs. It's like, I like when they take a character like the succubus teacher, Saki. I like how they explained how her struggles would be very down to earth and realistic, having those, issues of dealing with controlling people's sexual urges and stuff, even whether it be intentionally or unintentionally. I feel that is pretty grounded in reality.
Yeah, it was very, very interesting to see that.
And then I'd say my least favorite anime. Oh man. Well, I already know what you're gonna say for your least favorite anime, but my least favorite anime is probably Asterisk War, because I sat
Oh
through
man,
I sat through season one, kind of not really
I don't know
thinking.
how.
I got
I
through
don't know how.
got to season two, dropped it for a little bit, and I completely forgot about one character. I forget her name. But when I continued watching it, she's a side character. The Neko character from Asterisk War, her voice was so headache-inducing that the second I heard her voice when I picked it back up, I instantly stopped watching and set it as dropped on my anime list.
Yeah, I have a very rocky relationship with the Asterisk Wars, in that it was whenever first started getting into like fan translated manga. It was one of the first series I read, and this was like 2 years ago, so I just started watching anime and reading manga and stuff, and I hadn't really learned to think with an analytical mind, and I really enjoyed it. But then I just kind of stopped reading. I think I got caught up and then just stopped, and then Digibro made the Asterisk Wars, the Asterisk War Sucks series, and I started thinking a lot more analytically about my shows. Yeah, the series is utter trash, and I definitely dislike it a lot. I have the book, and oh man.
There will probably be another episode about just talking about Asterisk War and other stuff like that, so look forward to Silence rants about that.
Yeah, on the topics list, I see the harem genre as a topic in the near future.
Yeah. There are a few harems that are done pretty well, but again, we'll save that for a later date. Silent, now, would you like to talk about your favorite and least favorite anime
Oh
currently?
boy, yeah, I would. Alright, so I have a three-way tie for my favorite anime because I like them all for very different reasons. So there's Baka and Test, Summon the Beasts, both seasons, and the OVA. And these are my favorite partially in due to nostalgia reasons and partially due to the fact that I've watched it like 6 times, 6 or 7 times that first season, and like 4 or 5 times the second season. And I always, it's never gotten boring to me. I can just sit down and watch it, and it's always so much fun, and I still love every character in the show. It's a very strange show. I mean, it's not really that strange of a show. It's a very goofy comedy series. I think it would probably be more popular now that we've seen such a proliferation of the underdog main character that's actually really strong. Because Buck and Test, it directly parodies that. It's a spoof of that type of show because the main character always acts like he's really strong. Everyone builds him up that he's like, oh, he's really strong even though he's in F class, and then it's like, oh no, he's actually just a complete idiot and buffoon. That it's really enjoyable in that sense. Shows that have like underdog main characters that are actually really strong. Rakadai Kishi no Cavalry or Cavalry or Chivalry of a Failed Knight. Um, it aired the first season aired the same time of it aired the same time as the first season of the Asterisk Wars. Um, Digibro kind of analyzes it at the end of his Asterisk Wars series in the last 2 episodes, and I read the manga. I read part of the manga for it. It's really good. It's actually a very well done series with that type of character, in the sense that it, it uses the tropes to the kind of to their fullest. It stays very collected with its tropes and doesn't really try to do anything new, but it still does it well. It still executes it fairly well.
I feel like a series with generic tropes, if it's done right, can make those generic tropes kind of really shine because it can turn a generic trope into, something that actually feels real, even if you know that you've seen the sort of same type of character before. It's not the same character.
Right, yeah, I get that. But I mean, these characters. I mean, the first episode in Chivalry of a Failed Knight, has the main character walking in on the main girl. She gives him the slap off screen. Of course, it's tactful with that. Uh, After the main character has decided, you know what, you know, uh, an eye for an eye, right? I've seen you in your underwear. Let me just strip down. You can see me in my underwear. That way we'll be even.
Oh my god. Okay, you've just instantly sold me on the series. You're gonna have to
Oh yeah, that's
PM
it's
this
what
to me
sold me
later.
on the series. It's what sold me on the series. I thought that scene was hilarious. It's definitely better than what the Asterisk Wars did.
Yeah, which is do the same rehashed garbage as every other generic light novel adaptation.
Yeah, but I thought that scene in particular was pretty funny. Endeared me to the show a fair amount because I thought the main character was pretty fun. Uh, and I watched the first 4 episodes because that's the amount of the manga I had read, and that's I didn't want to get spoiled on the manga, and I thought it was great. I'm very, very sad that Asterisk Wars got licensed and Chivalry of a Failed Knight did not. For getting the novels and manga translated into English by like Yen Press or whoever.
I'm still waiting for the Chaika light novel to be, whether it be fan translated or officially translated. I don't think there's a fan translation, but I haven't really looked too deep into
I
it. But
don't believe there is. I don't believe there is. There might be.
the manga with Chaika is it follows the light novel a lot more closely from what I've heard, and let's just say the manga's a lot darker off the bat than the anime. As dark as a girl in a white dress with a giant coffin and sniper rifle on her back, looking for her disembodied parts of her father.
I don't know how that's dark at all, man. I don't see it.
But like the thing about the manga is it was cut short after 5 volumes because they were trying to stop the manga and the anime and the light novel all at the same time.
Oh, that sounds like a great idea.
The anime or the manga only makes it to like the second arc of like the second hero in the series when there's like 5, and then the final fights and all the other characters. So it has a lot of story to be told. So I really want to find the manga for that, or the light novel.
I think that's pretty fair. I think that's quite fair. And then my third favorite anime series currently is Bakuman. I know everyone says that the manga is better, but I only have the first volume, and I am wanting to read more because it's really good. And it appeals to me as an author and a writer in that, they're just actively pursuing their goals, and I can relate to the characters an immense amount because obviously one of the characters is the writer for this manga team. And a lot of the problems he goes through, I can completely relate to and have gone through similar, obviously not to the extent that they are, because they're writing for freaking, they're trying to write for Weekly Shonen Jump. Spoilers, eventually they do get into Weekly Shonen Jump. Sorry. Uh, um, but I just really like that series, and by the last episode, I was like crying tears of joy at the ending because it was just so good and so sweet. It's 75 episodes.
Is it Bakuman that had a second or like another season past that people said it should just end it, or
It had 3 seasons.
I don't know what I'm thinking of. It might have been just I
You might
might
be
be
thinking of
completely misremembering.
Barakamon.
Maybe I don't know. I honestly things that people might not expect from me is I honestly haven't watched that many series. I've only fully watched about 70 series, and I'm
We'll be fixing that shortly.
yeah. I need to sit down and watch more anime, but I have I have associated or gotten myself into the anime community, so I hear about a lot of anime and I kind of know what a lot of stuff is about and I understand tropes and stuff, but I just haven't watched a lot of stuff that people are like, "Hey, this shows this trope really well, but does it in a good light. Hey, this shows this really well, or this is a good series." It's like I've seen a few of the popular series and quite a few of the underground series.
I mostly watch older stuff currently.
I just haven't I have to catch up and actually read some of the series that I have on my list that I've set to watching because I just haven't. I just don't watch enough anime currently.
Right. I also just realized I said my third favorite series when I believe it was only my second. Um, uh, uh, did I say GJ Boo?
Oh, no, you didn't. Right.
Oh, okay. So GJ Boo. Yeah, GJ Boo is probably sorry. It's part of the three-way tie for my favorite series. GJ Boo. I actually was watching episode 2 with a friend as you contacted me, but that's all right. Uh,
Sorry about
that's
that.
fine. I've seen that show like 5 times. It's really good. I can't get enough of that show for some reason. It's it has also nostalgia. I can relate to the main character in that he's mostly friends with girls in high school, as I was in middle school, and so that's just how I can relate to that. And it's just a good show. It's a really good, cutesy slice of life show, and man, do I love my slice of life. I think you can understand that, Demore.
What? You don't? Oh, right, because Demore said that he's not a big fan of Slice of Life.
Oh, yeah, I called you Demore. Whoops. Oh well. And then least favorite series would probably be, all right, I'm about to go on a bucket list here.
Let's just say, Silent and I have talked a bit prior to this, and sit down, buckle up. We're about to go on a little bit of a rant.
Yeah. All right. So, Nyanko Days, Aldno Zero, Sword Art Online. Those are probably my bottom 3. I think those are the only 3 series I've given a 1 out of 10. All of which, because they have pissed me off in some way or another when watching them. Actually, Sword Art Online is a retroactive 1 out of 10, because that was what got me into anime, and I really enjoyed it when I watched it, and then I came back later and realized, oh my gosh, this series is utter garbage, and I hate it now.
One of the things that I think Sword Art really kind of the reason why it does so well, but a lot of people don't really like it, is because it shoves in so many different genres within the first season of the anime and doesn't really expand on them. Like,
You've got the harem genre in it.
you've got just the regular romance, of just that one arc. You've got just overpowered main character shonen trope, and you've got like just two different like arcs in the same season. That's like, hey, if you didn't like this arc, you might like this one.
You've got the edge genre mixed in there with the premise. Actually, I think the premise is not bad. I think the first two episodes of Sword Art Online are probably the best. And then episode 3 was okay. Episode 2 is pretty dumb. Whenever you actually look at it, because episode 2 was the first half of the first volume of the first progressive novel, which is taking the series floor by floor, and the first volume is the first 2 floors. So it's taking the series floor by floor up until they beat the game. So it's kind of like an alternate universe. And so the second episode is the first half of the first volume. So the entirety of the first floor of Sword Art Online Progressive. And like with the one character's death in episode 2, the blue-haired guy, I forget his name. Everyone knows who I'm talking about that's seen the show, though. It's actually a lot better done in the novel, and makes more sense why he didn't accept the potion. Because Kirito was actually running in the book. He was running to give the guy the potion before he died, and then he died, and Kirito wasn't able to make it over to him. And so it's like, okay, that makes a bit more sense. But Kirito still, causing anger towards the beta testers, still kind of dumb.
Mm-hmm. I still think that the one of the reasons why I really just didn't like it as well is it really tried to make you feel for the characters when they died, but it didn't. Like, the characters were in for 2 episodes and gone.
Yeah, only a couple people actually die in the show as well.
Well, like, that one girl who died when they went into that trap or whatever, like, with the alley cats or whatever that clan was, it felt like it was supposed to be emotional, but we had only seen those characters for, 3 episodes, so we just didn't care.
So I can tell you, yeah, you didn't even see them for 3 episodes, you saw them for half an episode. But I can tell you exactly why that happened. So, the majority of the middle half of the middle part of the first arc is all side stories that were involved in Volume 2. And these side stories may or may not add plot holes, like in Yui's side story, which is just what? Like, there's a reference in it where kids, under the age of 13, actually cannot use the nerve gear, because that's just how the nerve gear is worked. And then later, you see them in an orphanage, where there are definitely kids younger than 13 in there. It's just a little done. All right, we've got roasting Sword Art Online off the checklist. All right.
Yeah, we were talking prior to this, and we were talking before this, and we're like, so when are we gonna shoehorn in the Sword Art Online talk? And we're like, we'll figure it out.
It's always gotta have any anime discussion's gotta roast Sword Art Online in some way or another. It's not actually an anime discussion, right? Then I'll Know Zero is a show that I watched. I got through the first season, which is like the first half of the show, and I really enjoyed it. And I was wondering where it was gonna go. It wasn't amazing, but I thought it was like 5, 6, 5 out of 10, 6 out of 10, a strong 5 to a light 6. It was pretty okay. And then the start of season 2 happened, and it just like no one actually died, and it just really pissed me off, because at this point I was sick of it, and it was just really dumb. It's like, this is stupid, and I think this is trash. So I dropped the second season and rated the first a 1, because I hated it and everything it stood for at that point. Whenever it did that, it was like, no, you're not doing this to me. And then Nyanko Days, I hate it and gave it out a 1 out of 10 because it's really bad, not worth your time. Also because it's not Nuko Duke.
I can't tell you how many times I've heard that sentence.
We'll get into that later, because I have it on the topic list there. I see it. It's number 15 on the topic list. Yeah, it's just not Nuko Duke. It's just not Nuko Duke, and that made me really mad. Because it feels like a blatant ripoff.
Let's just say I thought it wasn't bad, but it wasn't good before. I rewatched it and I'm like, yeah, this isn't that good. I gave it like a 3, I think, because it was like, it's not as bad as I think Silent perceives it to be, because the fact that he's a little swayed due to the fact that Nuko Duke didn't get an anime adaptation. but it's definitely not good.
Yeah, that is where most of my rage comes from. That it is basically not Nuko Duke is a large part of my rage. It's very petty, and I understand, but Nuko Duke is actually one of my favorite manga, so that's a big reason.
Which we can actually transition this into the second thing. Silent, what are your favorite books, whether they be manga or whatever?
Yeah. So currently my favorite books and manga series. I'll separate them. My favorite book series currently is probably the Don Machi light novels, because I really like them. Like, they aren't the most amazing thing ever, but it's just executed very well. It's kind of like My Hero Academia in that, it's a shonen through and through, but it's just executed really well with the anime. And Don Machi is like that for me. It's just executed very well, and the characters do actually develop. It's just a very slow moving series in that regard. The characters develop not necessarily more so gradually over time. It's just they devote a single volume to each character, and the characters being introduced, it takes a while for the main cast to be fully introduced. Like, volume 1 is just Belle and Hestia, it's just those two. Volume 2, it's Lily gets introduced, and that is her book where she kind of joins the main crew and she gets introduced. Volume 3 is Belle getting over his Minotaur PTSD, which is probably my favorite book in the entire series. Volume 4 is Wealth getting introduced, and actually that's the book that they cut out the most from the anime, which really hurts the series a lot, actually, because Volume 4 is a lot of world building and history building. It's really important. Volume 5 is exploring the dungeon more. A lot of world building goes on there, and a lot of stakes happen there. That is the last book in the anime, and the anime really should have ended in Volume 3, because it would have made for an all-around, much more well-rounded series, and it just makes sense to end it at Volume 3, because it feels like the series could end there.
Yeah, and it would have also left opening for maybe a season 2 that would make a little bit of sense.
Right. So Volume 5 is the last book in the anime. Then there's Volume 6, which is simultaneously, it's probably my fourth or fifth favorite book in the series, because the villain is is kind of weak in characterization, and that he's basically just a male Freya, and that he just really, really wants Belle really badly.
Like he's thirsty for Belle,
Yes.
or
Yes, yes. It's Apollo, who Apollo in mythology is bisexual. Um, and they actually stick to mythology in the characters that are in there. There's Daphne in there, who is one of Apollo's lovers that he chased too far, and she was turned into a tree. Don't ask. And then there's I can't remember his name. It starts with an H. This is gonna destroy. I can't remember it. It's the disc throwing guy. I can't remember it. I can't remember his name. But he's also there, and he's like the guy that the main character has to fight at the end of the volume. Um, and like that book is like 250 pages, and it's just like three big fights throughout most of the book that take up almost the entirety of the book. Lily also finally, this is spoilers, heavy spoilers for this volume. There's uh, uh, that's the volume where Lily actually is finally released from Soma Familia, and her arc finally comes to a close. Because the arc had kind of been postponed for the most part till book 6. Then book 7 is it's tied for longest, I think. I think volume 8 is about as long, but it's the longest full just a story by itself volume in almost 400 pages, which is insane for a light novel. Light novels almost never go that long, so this is a very long book, and it's all about Belle's misadventures in the red light district, and fighting this big familia that fighting a Ishtar familia that completely owns the red light district. That is, it's Ishtar's familia owns the entirety of the red light district, and Ishtar is really jealous of Freya, and the main character. While important in that volume, in that he's saving this girl Haruhime, who is a friend to Makoto, one of Bell's new Familia members that joined in Volume 6, I believe. You know, she comes in, and Haruhime is a childhood friend that basically uh, got sold into slavery for some reason I can't remember. And so she's owned by the Ishtar Familia, and things happen. You know, that book is also just a lot of fights as well. There's two big fights that take up like 50 pages in the first fight, that take 25 pages to set up to it, and then the last fight is about 100 pages long. It's crazy long, and it's all really well done. And the best part about that volume is that Bell doesn't win the fight. He doesn't win against the big bad. He wins against the second big bad. It's left up to or not Loki, Freya Familia. Freya actually kills a goddess in volume 7. She actually kills Ishtar, knocks her off of the roof and kills her, and sends her back to the heavenly realm. And Freya's Familia actually takes care of that entire Familia. It's really well done.
The one thing that I will say that the Danmachi anime did really well was the fight with the Minotaur, and I don't know comparatively to the light novel or anything, but the final fight, which, granted, those two fights should have been the best because the fact that they were kind of two really climactic arcs, but yeah, the final fight is the one with the really big giant that just showed up in one of the safe zones.
I can't remember much about that fight, which means it probably did not do justice to the novel, because the fights in the novel, like all the fights except for the first fight, except for the fight at the end of the first volume against the ape guy, which I still kind of remember. They all stick very clearly in my mind, and I kind of generally remember exactly what went down in those fights. And so I'm not really sure if that last fight really does justice to the end of Volume 5 in the novel, but the Volume 5 novel, last fight, is insane. It's really, really cool, because it's not just Bell fighting, it's this large-scale attack of all the adventurers coming in and trying to defeat this one enemy that's threatening them all.
Yeah, the one giant that just showed up.
Yeah, it just showed up. The anime, I know, did not drop hints that this is very spoiler heavy, once again, that in the novel, Hestia basically says, "Oh no, how did it find me?" Which implies that the dungeon knows that the gods and goddesses on on where the humans live, where all the characters live, and is actively trying to kill them in some way, shape, or form. And that's kind of, it seems to be currently the dungeon's goal, is to kill the gods and goddesses. And so Hestia, whenever she releases her power, she and contains it, she goes, "Oh no, it found me," or something like that. So there's always kind of hints being dropped to this bigger storyline, especially in Volume 6, where it outright says, yeah, there's a bigger storyline going on. There's a bigger narrative happening here with the main character going to become a hero that takes down the final of the 3 challenges that face humanity. That his grandfather's Familia couldn't take.
Which is something that the anime didn't really do, because the fact
No,
that,
it doesn't, because it didn't have time. Yeah, I mean, it
well,
didn't.
like, the anime doesn't even drop any hints on it. Like, the anime, it's just like, yeah, this is a dungeon, this is kind of a thing, as opposed to, now this is just going off of speculation, just because I kind of just connect the dots when you said that. I'm assuming the dungeon itself is something created by some other power to send the gods back to the heavens or something like that.
I have no idea. They haven't really dropped any more hints than that, really, because they say in the book, the gods and goddesses, whenever you ask them about the dungeon, they always just kind of dodge the question. They just kind of, just move around and try to avoid the question as much as possible. So they clearly know something's happening and something's wrong with the dungeon, but they're just ignoring it. They're just not letting anyone know for some reason.
Yeah, as for, like, the anime, it was just like, hey, this is a dungeon, it's got a city with it where people live, and they go in the dungeon and they kill things for money. Yeah, woo.
I mean, for the most part, in the first volumes, it's definitely like that, but the world just feels more real. The series has a lot of heart to it, and you can tell the author is really trying to try his best in writing it, and it definitely shows with the writing. like the description and stuff like that. The description's always amazing in these novels, or in this novel, which is always quite nice to have. I will say the anime added a lot of fan service. Not that fan service is, not that Danmachi is devoid of fan service by any means. It has it for sure.
And by no means fan service is inherently bad, but when it interferes with the story, that's when I feel like it crosses the line.
The only time I've ever had a trouble with fan service in Danmachi is in Volume 5. It's the scene near the end of the anime where Hermes tricks Belle into going to peep on the girls while they're bathing. That was the only issue I had. I was like, does this really need to be here? And my guess is the editors said, yeah, you need to fill your quota of one fan service scene, a novel. So the author was like, all right, I guess I'll just use it to dump some important info. Uh, which it does. I mean, it eventually leads to important info and backstory on a character, but it's like, did it really have to be this way? Couldn't they have done it some other way? But that's the only time I've had issue with fan service. The most fan service heavy volume is Volume 7, because it just kind of comes with the nature of the red light district, you know?
Yeah.
Also, the main character, Belle, almost gets raped like twice in that volume. It was intense.
Alright, well, shall we go on to your third favorite?
I think that was only my first favorite.
You said Nuko Duke and you said...
Oh yeah, Nuko Duke, yeah.
You said
And
Danmachi.
then...
Or no, because
Yeah.
you were separating your novels and your manga.
So Danmachi, obviously Nuko Duke, I plan to talk about that a lot more, in much more depth on a later time, whenever I compared Nyanko Days and Nuko Duke, and contrast them. Mostly contrast. And then if I had to choose another favorite, like novel or manga, I don't have a lot of favorite novels. Probably like Count of Monte Cristo is up there, even though I haven't finished reading it. I just know this is a masterpiece and I love it already. Just from the first 12 hours of the audiobook, it's really good. That book is long. It's a 52-hour audiobook. And you have to focus. You have to focus on it. You can't be doing anything but listen to it, which is why I haven't gotten through it. Because it's a very complex narrative, but it's like the granddaddy of revenge stories, and it's so well done. It's hard to describe how well done it is. You can probably look up essays on how amazing it is, I'm sure. Um, it's probably my favorite novel in general, even though I haven't finished it. My second favorite manga, probably Fujimura-kun Mates, because it's one of the examples of harems in comedy done right. And like, because the comedy does not stem mostly from the harem, the comedy stems from the insane personalities of every character but the main character. And that makes it amazing.
That's what I feel like harems really should be, is if they're trying to go for like more of a comedy focused one, don't really focus on being like, have fan service because you can choose your best girl because of how they look. I feel like they really should flesh out the characters and make the characters interesting, because then, well, first of all, you can watch the waifu wars on the internet.
Let's be real, that's better than most harem shows nowadays.
Yeah. But also, second of all, because you feel like the character actually has a valid choice, as opposed to just, hey, you know how in episode 1, or volume 1 or whatever,
This girl was shown first.
This girl was shown first and she was walked in on while changing or whatever. It's like, oh, sure, he might have met this girl first, but this one is, this, even though this girl's his childhood friend, she's like, she's dealing with emotional issues, and she needs like at least some support, whether it be from the main character or whatever, or this girl is like, she's been through a lot, but the main character is there to help. Like, I like harem shows when they flesh out the romance with all of the characters.
Yeah, and I mean, you brought up fan service, but I don't even think Fujimura-kun Mates has like a lot of fan service, if any. I can't remember any particular scenes other than like when they're at the beach that there's any fan service, and I mean, they're at the beach.
Well, like, going back to what I said, like, fan service isn't inherently bad. It's just when it interferes with the story or becomes the focus of the story is when I feel like it loses
Asterisk wars.
it loses any real validity of being a series to be taken seriously.
Right. And my coughing while saying Asterisk Wars brings me to my least favorite book series, the Asterisk Wars. It's bad. It's real bad. So, you thought the anime was real fast into getting into the main character, the guy walking in on the girl changing. The anime actually postponed that as long as they could, by showing the fight scene at the beginning, even if that fight scene was bad. It wasn't that great of a fight scene. And then, just expositing information about the world. The the light novel doesn't even do that. It just the guy's in her room by page 3 and has already seen her in her underwear by page 3. And it's like, it doesn't even bother to explain anything for the most part until like 6 pages later, or like 4 pages later, until, when at the beginning, that's when the most exposition should be going on so that we understand certain terms in the world. Heck, by page 20, I still have no idea what prana is. They don't explain that. You just assume it's kind of like mana, except they have mana as well in the book to use magic. So what is prana? I don't know. It's really bad, and the syntax is just bad.
Isn't Asterisk War that one of the series that you're highlighting and like?
Yeah, it is. I'm analyzing it to know what not to do. Um, and I feel like I will kill myself if I read any more of that book because it's so badly written. That's undeniably the worst book I've ever read. The worst series I've ever read. There's one series that is about the same level, but I enjoy it more because it's memed here, and that's Jiku Maho. Which I don't know what it translates into English. It's this horrible, horrible web novel series. It's just really bad. Don't read it. It's trash. It's really bad. I've read a lot of web novels. There are probably some that I've read that are worse than Astro Scores. Jiku Maho is a very strong contender for it, actually. um, yeah, Astro Scores is probably the worst published novel I've ever read. That's the only one that really sticks into my mind because I really don't read books that I don't like.
I don't blame you. There's no sense in subjecting yourself to the torment if you don't enjoy it, unless you're masochistic.
I mean, I'm gonna have to eventually read all of the Astro Scores, so I know this is undeniably what not to do with a light novel, with when writing a book, and this is how you not like it's the thing that most pisses me off about the trope of the guy walking in on the girl. Like in Rakudai Kishi no Cavalry, it's kind of justified because it's there for the joke of not necessarily subverting it, but just going all out with the guys saying, an eye for an eye, let me strip down to my underwear so it's even. Even though that totally doesn't make it even at all. Not at all, but like, even still, it's funnier that way and feels slightly more justified. It's like, oh, it was setting up for that joke. Okay. In Asterisk Wars, it's like, why couldn't you just introduce this character a different way? Why bother introducing a character this way? It's just bad. It's really bad. So Avneer, what are your favorite books?
Okay, well, I'm honestly not much of a book kind of guy. I read manga because I struggle with ADHD, so it's hard for me to focus on anything unless it's like at least got some pictures to go along with it. I know that sounds childish, but like it's easier for me to read. Like I don't struggle with reading books. It's just I can't read books for as long as I can read manga. So I'll really only be talking about my favorite manga because
I mean, that's fine. It's still your favorites, so.
like my favorite manga number 3, let me quickly look at my manga collection. Number 3 I'd probably say is the Madoka manga because I only have volume 1 so far and I've only read volume 1, but it follows the story quite clearly. But let's say Silent, you would not be able to read it because it's a lot more gory. It as opposed to it happening off screen, it actually shows yeah. Number 2, the Chaika series. The only reason it's not number 1 is because the fact that it was cut short, but I really like how they went with they stay closer to the light novel because the story is actually a little bit more focused. I feel like it's not as kind of chaotic and the character doesn't seem like a lazy asshole and then all of a sudden,
Hey man, there
oh,
can
he's
be
super
fun
powerful.
with insanity. There can be fun with insanity. Like, I just got finished watching Invaders of the Rokujima, and that is just insanity. But it was tons of fun. Studio Silverlink is always good with nothing amazing. They don't do anything amazing other than like Baka and Test and Rakudai, uh, Rakudai Kishi no Cavalry are probably my favorite stuff that they've done. But like everything they make seems to have a lot of heart, and that just makes it a lot more enjoyable. So like I don't think I've given stuff they've made like less than a 6, because I just really enjoy their series. Just always have a lot of heart and are just always incredibly enjoyable for me.
But the thing with the Chika anime is like Toru, the main character, he feels like a lazy asshole in the first few episodes, and then you get into like where he's going through a bit of an arc, I guess, where he's like, I'm not a good guy, I'm actually hoping for war and shit like that, and then he just kind of starts to devote his whole existence to just helping out, and then all of a sudden he seems like a super hyper powerful, I'm so cool kind of character.
Well, this character sounds all over the place. He
Yeah,
doesn't sound
and then I don't know, the anime really makes Toru seem kind of just lazy
crazy,
because of the fact that there's
schizophrenic,
no war going on, which like I understand
bipolar
because
maybe.
no, it's like because the reason why he's lazy is because he's only supposed to be a saboteur, yeah, like basically an assassin or like a trap master, really tactically advanced for war, but there's no war going on, so he's got to find another job, but he doesn't want to find another job because he sucks at everything else. But like I don't know, just he seems like overly lazy as in the anime. In the manga, not so much. Plus, can't speak. Um, especially since in the manga, they as opposed to it just being like, hey, this girl shows up and wants to hire you because you're a person. Um, in the manga, they explain that Chika actually goes to a guild in the city, which Toru and Akari are both like working at, but they have to like take contracts and jobs. And Chika goes to the guild and asks for help, and the guild then contacts Toru and Akari to help her out, as opposed to her just being like, hey, you're powerful and this and that, you should help me out. It feels like more like an actual contract and more formal, as opposed to just being thrust in and being like, have fun.
You know, Japanese fantasy, there's always got to be a guild in there somewhere. You don't really realize it, but there's always a guild in Japanese. There's like almost always a guild of some sorts in
At least
medieval
in
Japanese
medieval
fantasy.
fantasy.
Yeah, in medieval fantasy, there's almost always a guild, which I'm not against, but it's almost never handled well.
And as much as I'm saying, oh, the Chike anime was disappointing and stuff, I still love the anime. I've seen the anime 5 or 6 times, and I still love it. I'm just saying, I wish it was handled better. It was handled alright, but it could have been done better.
Right. Yeah, I judge how much I like an anime by how many times I'm willing to rewatch it.
I just usually judge an anime on my enjoyment of it and how, like, looking back, if I remember, like, yeah, that was an enjoyable series, and I'll tweak accordingly.
Yeah, I get that. But I mean, if I'm constantly rewatching stuff and reaffirming my feelings for a series, I probably enjoy it more.
Yeah, even though I know Chika isn't the best series, I still have it set as a 10 on my anime list because I love the series to death.
Cheating Craft, I know I gave a 7 out of 10, because as hilariously bad as that show was, like nothing in that show made sense and it was hilarious. There's this one scene in I think like episode 8 where it takes itself not really all that seriously, but it's like slightly more serious than the rest. And I was like, no, this is not okay. So I gave it a 7, because I mean it did set up for a joke, but I ended up giving 7. The series 7 for that. I would have given a series a 10 out of 10 otherwise, because it was absolutely amazing. It was hilarious, but yeah, it just had that one episode where it was like, it's taking itself a little too seriously. Uh-oh.
Yeah. A series really should keep its tone a little bit more consistent, unless it's like setting up for a short joke within like maybe a 10 minutes like span.
And I mean, that episode was funny. It was funny. The episode is a training arc where at first it seems to be taking itself a little bit seriously, and then you get into the actual training, and it's just the same insanity that the series has been. But like, it just felt weird for that one moment where it's taking itself a little bit seriously, and it just didn't feel right. So I gave it a 7 out of 10. There are definitely series that I've given meme 10 out of 10s temporarily.
And going on to my top one favorite series, and I actually, what's funny is I found someone else who's seen this series. That's a mutual of mine on the good old website Tumblr. Um, Today's Cerberus. Oh man.
Oh yeah, that's me.
Yeah, you've read it. And one of my mutuals on Tumblr, who I actually only just like started talking to recently, apparently has read it too. And honestly, the characters are a little generic.
Oh, they're a little. They're quite generic, but it's incredibly enjoyable.
Like, and the main character is flat as hell, but
But that's okay, because all the other characters are great.
well, the main character's flat as hell, and he's flat because of story.
Right. It's the point of the series. The series would not start if the main character was not incredibly flat.
Yeah, the series' actual like kind of charm is the fact that everyone is such a good character, and then there's just the main character being just, yeah, I'm here. I'm just, yeah.
Yeah, and no one else understands why he's so flat. Which is not brought up all that much, but it's brought up every now and then and is hilarious.
Every character like at least acknowledges it once, but yeah, it's
They're all just like, what's wrong with your smile? Why do you have no emotions?
oh man, it's so good. I actually today I ended up ordering the second volume, and I'm so excited for it to come in. Like, I'm the type of person who I'll get like a digital version of it, whether it be through like ebooks or fan translations or whatever. Sorry, I for anyone who's against that. But if I like a series enough, I will go out and I will actively seek out the series to buy, and I will buy the physical versions of it, I will buy the digital versions of it, I'll buy merchandise from it, because if I like a series enough, I'm perfectly willing to like support the people who made it, because
I mean, if Nuko Duke got licensed in America and was available for sale, I would buy each volume 3 times. One to read, one to put on my shelf, and one to treasure, and never and like hide away. And I do that for every volume, because I love that series so much. And I don't understand the argument against fan translations unless they're translating something that is already licensed. That's different, but I feel fan translations are very important to getting stuff over in America. Like, there are a lot of series that just don't have anime adaptations that are still popular in fan translating communities, and that gets them licensed. There's Death March, light novel that I read 14 volumes of before finally dropping it, because as enjoyable as it was also it wasn't that great. And I was mostly reading it because it was coming out every couple of days, and so it was something to read, because that's how it is with web novel translation community, because there's only so many good web novels, and there's only like 3 of them that are actually great. And so you gotta just read what you can, is what ends up happening. Yeah, so Death March got licensed. Rise of Shield Hero got licensed. Mushoku Tensei, which is the series that I haven't read because it's pretty mature. And that manga got licensed. What else? Today's Cerberus, obviously. The manga series Girlfriends. I don't believe that ever got an anime adaptation. That was like the Yuri series that made Yuri popular over in the West a lot more than it already was, and which is why Milk Morinaga manga is like constantly being translated by Seven Seas, because I believe it's them doing it. Haven't read it, but I've heard it's pretty good. That doesn't have an anime adaptation. A lot of these series that would not be translated over here because they don't have anime adaptations, you can now enjoy in your native language, professionally translated. And so it's very important.
one series that I'm really glad is actually being fan translated, and I really hope gets officially translated, is Tomo-chan is a Girl.
I don't think that'll ever get licensed. It's too short currently. and not only that, I don't think the fan base is enough anymore. I don't think the fan base is large enough.
I still love the series. Like, I'm so glad that it's being fan translated so that I can read it because honestly, it's it's pretty good.
I mean, I feel the same way about Nuko Duke, you know? That's because there's no other way I'd be able to read it. Yeah, I mean, there are a lot of good series that are only fan translated. Sevens is one of them. I really want that to get officially translated. That's actually a completed web novel series that you should read because it's one of the examples of harem done very well, and one of the few examples of it. It's because the harem is not the point of the plot, it just kind of develops over the course of the plot in ways that make perfect sense.
I feel like that's how harem should be done, is not feel shoehorned in. Like, you shouldn't go into a series, you know, since it's a harem, be like, yeah, I'm watching this, and I know that in episode 1 we're gonna meet 5 different girls, and they're all gonna want the guy's dick. As crude as that's to say.
Yeah, in volume 1 of Sevens, you meet Novum, who is the first girl in the main character's harem, and why she's in love with him and why she is the way she is explained later in a lot later in the novel's life, like near the second to last volume or something like that, like right at the end. She's simultaneously the most interesting character because of the mystery surrounding her, but she has the least personality, if that makes sense. She's kind of the most boring character for a large point of the manga, but the reason why makes perfect sense once it gets explained why she acts the way she is. And it makes perfect sense, and I can completely understand why. And it's like, oh, that makes sense. Everything that she's done up to this point makes perfect sense now. And then, like, in Volume 2, another girl is introduced. And then Volume 3, I don't think there's a girl introduced. Then Volume 4, I can't remember. The series has like 18 volumes. But the girls are not the main attraction in the volume. They are a big part of it and are important to the plot because most of the rulers of the kingdoms are, what do you know, girls. And the main character has to seduce them to get their support, which is hilarious. And well done, too. It's really well done. But the main draw and what the real appeal of Sevens is the main character and his 7 ancestors and their bond, and their like parental bond. It's really good. It's an amazing series. It's really long though. It's 343 chapters, but it feels like it only gets better as it goes. It never feels like there's any real pacing issues or that it ever gets into a slump. It just continues getting better and better and better as the plot goes on, and until the final fight, which is the entirety of the last volume.
As a guy who is able to somehow sit through all of Homestuck, I think if I had the motivation, I could probably read this.
Yeah, and the only other the other harem that I feel like actually uses its harem to its full potential in that the purpose of the show is the main character's interactions with these girls is probably The World God Only Knows. That's probably the series that's best handled it.
One sec, let me quickly search that. That name is so familiar, but
It's the main character is, I think it's Kama. I think. It's the guy who gets contracted to the demon Elsie. Yeah, that series. I binge read the entire manga, which probably won't ever get licensed, sadly enough. So I binge read the entire manga, and oh my gosh, that series is so good.
I've heard a lot of things about it and seen a lot of things about it.
It's really good. I highly recommend reading it.
Alright, Silent, well, we're approaching an hour and we still have yet to talk about our favorite games. Do you want to try to push this for an hour and a half?
Sure, I don't mind. So, favorite games. Do you want me to go first or you? I guess I'll go first since you just went. So my favorite game is probably the Dark Souls series, except for Dark Souls 2. I don't like that one as much. I know that's a pretty common opinion, but the Dark Souls series, man, it's just there's something about it. It draws me in with the story, and the gameplay. The gameplay is just really, really fun, and the world exploration is a blast. Even though I haven't beat the first one or the second one, but I've beaten the third one like 3 times, the world is just really fun to explore and theorize about, and the gameplay is just so much fun. and meme tier second is probably a Panzer model tank dating sim, um, because that is meme tier.
I still have yet to read that. I've been thinking about possibly streaming it on Twitch just because it's a fun game and it'd be a fun way to just kind of let loose, I guess.
Oh man, that game is so funny. It obviously, if you couldn't tell, it's very much a parody of dating sims. It's a spoof. It's so great. It's so great. It's not a spoof of Otome like Hateful Boyfriend. That's a spoof of Otome. You know the Tank Dating Sim is a spoof of like dating sims. You know those like Nekopata, those type of dating sims. Shuffle as well. Those type of dating sims, and oh my gosh, it's so funny. It's really short. You can read one route in about 2 hours, and then it takes like 10 minutes to go through another route, so you can finish it pretty quickly. And there's only like 5 routes, but it is so funny. Don't read it if you're sensitive to to like black comedy, especially black comedy about World War II. It's, because it definitely pokes jokes at that. There's also a Crimea joke in it. So it's, you should know what you're getting into if you're gonna read it, but it's so funny.
Yeah, and the art style is I think the art style is intentionally bad though.
I mean, it's not horrible, but it's nothing amazing. It's just all right. But it's really fun. And there's actually a secret route you can go through with a secret tank, because every dating sim has a secret route that you can unlock, and so of course this game has to have it. And it's just absurd. It's just really dumb. And then I think we modified it to games we just didn't get the hype for. And that would probably be, yeah, I don't know. I generally enjoy games that I play like a large amount. Maybe Smite, I guess. But I like Dotas, and I really enjoyed that game. So yeah, I don't really. Maybe OS. Maybe OS. I also just can't play that game because I get sick. So
I personally am a player of it, but I understand why some people don't like it, especially since if they aren't in the anime community and they're trying to find a rhythm game, everyone's like, "Hey, oh, this is a good game. It's a good game. Wanna come play this?" And then they see just the comparison between animes and just Japanese stuff compared to English stuff. It's like 100 to 1.
I can't actually play OS. I used to play it, but it made me sick, so I can't play it anymore. Like, playing it actually makes me nauseous, because probably of motion sickness or light sickness, one of the two. Which makes me sad because I really enjoyed it.
I I've been playing it a little bit more recently, and I've been getting quite a bit better. So I'm enjoying my time. It's also a game that I one of the games that I'll say that I genuinely tilt on because the fact that I feel like I should be doing better even though I'm not.
Right. Yeah, I get that.
I suppose we ready for me to transition onto us? For me?
Yeah.
All right. Well, my favorite games. Well, if we're talking about playtime and just general enjoyment of a game, I definitely say Destiny. I've been playing since year one, and I'm still excited for Destiny 2 coming out in September. I've put well over a month onto my main character alone, which I know compared to the people who like play it literally every day might not be a lot. But for someone like me who is kind of a general gamer who kind of plays a little bit of everything, that's quite a bit of time for one game. Even though the story's kind of bad, vanilla story at least. I stuck with it, and the gameplay is just it's solid. I really like the game.
Yeah, it's fun. I played, obviously, as I was saying. I got the game I think a month after it came out, so year one. I've been there for a long, long time. I was there for a long time. Played Crota the day it came out. Played House of Wolves the day it came out, and then like a couple weeks after House of Wolves, I just got bored with the game because there was no new real raid. And that was boring because the raids was the most enjoyable part of the game for me.
That's how a lot of people were though with House of Wolves, and that's kind of why they dropped the idea of, oh, we shouldn't put a raid in this. It's like people are the people at Bungie are like, yeah, we need a raid, otherwise people are going to be disappointed. But King's Fall, it was the raid.
Too much raid?
The
Too
raid,
much?
it was too much raid. Yeah, there was. It might not be a very long raid compared to some other games, but it was well over the time. It was a lot longer than Vault of Glass or Crota, like especially Crota, because like you could probably finish 3 Crota runs in the time it takes to do one King's Fall run.
Yeah, especially if you glitch across the bridge in Crota like I always did.
And then the last raid that they came out with before saying that we're done with Destiny 2 until Destiny 2, the Wrath of the Machine raid. I've only done it a few times, but it's pretty fun. It's quite reliant on teamwork and communication, because a lot of it is like you only have a few seconds to react, so you need everybody to be in perfect position. Otherwise, it's like good luck.
That sounds real fun.
And then the Age of Triumph update came out, and all the raids were back, and they were slightly modified and updated, and it's like, have fun.
That's pretty cool.
And then another game that I really like is obviously OS. I'm currently ranked like 45,000 in the world, so like pretty high up there, but
Hey, that's not bad. Better than me. Can't even play the game without getting sick.
and there's not really a whole lot to talk about that because it's just a rhythm game.
It's OS. I mean, there's not much to talk about.
Yeah, and I don't really know what my third one would be. I guess my third favorite game would be Black Ops 2, just because I used to play it a lot, but I'm not a big Call of Duty guy anymore. They got
Oh, me neither. Not anymore. World War II, called WW2, seems really cool, and I'm somewhat excited for it because it might get me back into COD.
I'm gonna wait for a little bit to see how they play it out, but
I already have pre-ordered, so might as well.
if it makes up for the previous game's sort of like faults and kind of goes back to the regular sort of
The old way, that, yeah.
and then games that I didn't really understand the hype for. I'd honestly have to say like probably the Battlefield series, as much as that is to say, like I know a lot of people really like the Battlefield series, but I'm more of an arcade type of shooter guy. The second you introduce any physics on the bullets and actually having to really think other than point and shoot,
I mean, you don't have to think too much, honestly, in Battlefield when it comes to that, unless you're sniping.
although it is more than just, Destiny and COD and stuff, because it's like I like games that are a little bit faster paced.
Yeah. I just remembered a game that I didn't get the hype for, the Fallout franchise. I just don't get the hype for it. I don't think it's that good.
The Bethesda games are really kind of hit or miss.
Yeah, I really like Skyrim though. It's really fun. I've been playing it a bit more. I can never stay with it past level 40 though, because once I hit level 40, I just get bored. I think it's because I like the start of Skyrim a lot more than everything else in the game. That's my problem with a lot of sandbox games. Yeah, that's the problem I have with a lot of sandbox games, is that I really enjoy the start, and then once I get past that start, it's like, well, let's go and start again. I have the same issue with Minecraft, which is why I don't play it anymore. But I mean, Skyrim, now that it has mods with Special Edition on the Xbox One, oh, that's fun. It's really fun.
Yeah, I've actually been playing. I did my first like actual not full playthrough, but I actually played Skyrim for the first time. Like
Did you actually beat the story?
I didn't beat the story. I just like actually played it more so past level 20, when Special Edition came out, and I was really enjoying it. I haven't played it recently, but it was fun. It was fun.
I finally got a mod loadout where it doesn't crash anymore. Whenever I play for too long, it no longer crashes, and that makes me really happy, because that was stopping me from playing for a while.
With Skyrim, that's a feat. Good job.
Yeah, I don't know how I figured it out, but I did it. I just deleted certain mods that I was like, well, maybe this is the issue, and I guess it was. That felt like I needed to pat myself on the back for doing that, because it's really hard to get a good mod loadout that doesn't crash.
I just wish my computer setup was good enough for me to be able to play Skyrim on the PC, because PC has so many better mods.
Yeah, mine is set up for that, but I just don't feel like buying Skyrim again. I probably will at some point, but not yet, not yet.
Well, seems like we're finished all the topics that we wanted to talk about this podcast. Yeah. Thanks everyone for listening in. I'm one of your hosts, Avneer and Silent.
I am V7 Silent, the other host.
And yeah, thanks for listening to the podcast.
Bye!